The Pope is normally fairly free, but his response to a question about whether or not Ukraine should surrender to Russia, Francis said that he believes those who have the courage to raise the white flag and to negotiate are stronger. When you see you are defeated, that things are not going well, you have to have the courage to negotiate. You are ashamed, but with how many deaths will it end? Negotiate in time and look for some country to act as a mediator. Don't be ashamed to negotiate before things get worse. Negotiation is never surrender. It is the courage not to lead the country to suicide. Well, it's an interesting point of view. And Russia has of course, jumped on this with alacrity. And Russia has said that this means Peskov, Russia's spokesperson, has said that the call by Pope Francis for talks to end the Ukraine war was quite understandable, and that Russia was ready to sit down, but that Kyiv had ruled out talks due to a mistaken view that the West could defeat Russia. Actually, I think all the West was trying to do was to give support to Zelenskyy in Ukraine as they asked for it. Pope Francis has said, says the Russian report, that Ukraine could have what he called the courage of the white flag to negotiate an end to a conflict that has killed tens of thousands. Russia calls the war a special military operation to ensure its own security. Kyiv and the West call it a brutal colonial-style war of conquest. I'm afraid I don't subscribe to Putin's propaganda here. It is quite understandable that he, the Pope, spoke in favor of negotiations. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters about the Pope's remarks. Well, of course, there's a difference between negotiations, which should be taking place and should have been taking place from the very beginning, and we in Britain have compromised that possibility by imposing rather meaningless sanctions. And that means that we have cut off, if we haven't quite cut off diplomatic relations, we've certainly cut off the routes to negotiation. And we should be negotiating. We should be helping by keeping those bridges open, not necessarily the Kerch Bridge, but keeping our bridges open so that conversation is taking place, not just conversation in the back room. Conversation is taking place to try to ameliorate the damage to the civilian population that Russia is causing. Peskov goes on, unfortunately, both the statements of the Pope and the repeated statements of other parties, including ours, have recently received absolutely harsh refusals. Well, that's partly because the Russian proposal for negotiation is not negotiation. It's an imposition of a particular form of surrender that would involve acquiescing to Russia's land grab of 4 states in Ukraine, including the Crimea. And I don't think any country should be forced to capitulate to that sort of land grab. I think there is a room for negotiation about the Donbass and about Crimea, and certainly about Russia's access to the Crimean ports. I don't think there's room for negotiation on the grounds that these are now Russian territory. That is the problem with the Russian intransigence. For Russia, negotiation means a different thing, I think, than what the Pope suggests, and certainly how Zelenskyy would understand negotiation. Peskov goes on, this is the deepest misconception, the deepest mistake, and the course of events primarily on the battlefield is the clearest evidence of this. And the President Zelenskyy has said that the Pope was engaging in virtual mediation, and that his foreign minister has also said that Kyiv would never capitulate. I think while that is the position, I don't think we should pull back from virtual negotiation. Virtual negotiation is a very good position, and the Pope's intercession is to be encouraged. The Maria Zakharova has said, the way I see it, she's wrong, of course, the Pope is asking the West to put aside its ambitions and admit it was wrong. I don't think the West has ambitions in Russia, and I don't think the West has ambitions in Ukraine. I think the West is simply recognizing that a predatory neighbor has invaded a sovereign state, and that sovereign state has asked for help, and that help has been forthcoming and should be more forthcoming. To recognize that an invasion is acceptable and is rewarded is to spell the end of the principles of civilization that we understand. It's a land grab, and any land grab must be resisted. Now, there are many ways to resist. I personally do not think, and have never thought, that sanctions are a way forward. I think sanctions are a waste of time. Sanctions only hurt the civilian population, because Mr. Putin and his cronies have squirreled away so much money they can withstand years of sanctions. That was at the heart of Navalny's revelations, that Putin has been squirreling away money, has been taking money from the civilian population, from Russia, in much the same way as all tyrants have taken money from the people they rule. And we're going to reward Putin by negotiating on his terms and allowing or forcing Zelenskyy to surrender. I hope not. And I hope the Pope isn't giving his imprimatur to such an action.